Good evening and welcome. I would like to call the meeting of the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Twinsburg City Schools to order. Today is Wednesday, September 7th. The time is 7 o'clock. Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Fabon?
Here.
Mrs. Travis?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here. We are all here, so let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on to item D. Do we have any changes or addendums to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Curtis, could we please split M12 and M13 into two rather than one vote, please?
Okay, I'll make a motion to separate M12 and M13. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Crawford. Discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Fabon?
Yes.
Mrs. Travis?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. Okay, that passes 5-0. I'll move on to communications in my president's report. Good evening, Twinsburg families, friends, and staff. I'm Mark Curtis, and I'm pleased to serve as your board president. On August 29th, the board again met with representatives from the National School Boards Association to continue our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion for our school district. Specifically, we finalized our definition for what equity means for Twinsburg City Schools. This process began last school year and included input by staff, students, and parents. This development represents a significant step in our commitment to ensure that all students have the access and supports necessary to be successful in our school district. We will now continue working with the NSBA in developing realistic goals and action steps for this school year based on data gleaned from the previous equity audit that was performed. It's important to understand that these initiatives are aligned to our ongoing strategic plan, and this work remains fluid. I'm very proud of this administration and especially my board colleagues for taking the time and putting forth the effort to bring this to fruition. Our expectation is that this work becomes a part of our overall culture, regardless of our role or responsibility that any employee has. We'll continue to keep you abreast as things continue to develop. Also, in response to concerns and questions that were raised due to incidents that occurred at our high school, last Tuesday we hosted a forum to discuss safety and security in our district. We would like to thank all of those who joined us in person as well as those who watched via live stream. We discussed current strategies around safety and security and our various partnerships with surrounding communities that help support our students and staff. We recognize that the necessity to continue assessing the effectiveness in all that we do and improve where necessary. In order for this to happen, your feedback is critical. We continue to explore options beyond the strategies we have and the people that we currently employ. However, the confidence in the community that we serve is what is most important. So please be sure to continue to share your ideas for us to consider in making our school environment as safe as it can be. Lastly, I want to remind the community of our 6.9 renewal levy that will be on the ballot this November. These dollars represent $5.2 million and approximately 10% of our current operating expenditures, operating revenues. It's critical that we maintain our current level of funding and continue to work toward finding ways to reduce our spending while delivering high-quality education to our students. We appreciate the years of support in continuing to pass these levies, and we do not take it for granted. This concludes my report for this evening. I will now turn the meeting over to our superintendent, Mrs. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, residents, and those who are here tonight. Thank you for joining us. The school year is underway, and believe it or not, we're into week 4. Next week is halfway through the quarter. It's just amazing how quickly the school year proceeds, and we are just so excited about all of the Tiger spirit you feel when you're in the buildings, we feel when you're at any of our events. Our varsity football game last Friday night, although we didn't get the score we had desired, it was a great game, and the boys stuck with it, and it was just a great community event. We thank our Twinsburg PTA Council for hosting the Tiger Tailgate beforehand, and all the local businesses that came out to support our school family. So thank you one and all for the Tiger spirit. It is great to be a Tiger. It's great to be here in our community, and we look forward to doing lots of other community events to bring the community back together, because for 2 years we just weren't able to do that, and it is so much fun to spend time just catching up with people who support our students. Board of Education this evening, Mrs. McKinney is going to be presenting information about our new classified staff members. As you know, at the last meeting, she introduced our new certificated staff members, and tonight we're going to introduce you to classified staff members who've been employed to support our students in many different facets across the school community. So we're delighted for that introduction, which will begin here shortly. Also, board, this evening there are 2 important administrative reports. First of all, Mr. Strickland, our new business manager, will provide the board and the community with an update regarding our summer projects. The summer went by very quickly. There were many transitions here through the summer with staffing, but in the middle of it all were projects that happened. And we wanted to make sure the board is aware of all the things that happened. And thanks to the support of our community, we made some pretty big capital improvements along the months of the summer. Also this evening, Mrs. Farthing, our Director of Curriculum, is here to share some very exciting news about the local report card. We are delighted by the ratings that are preliminary, that we expect to be soon published by the Department of Education. But having been in the middle of a pandemic, to see the scores that our students were able to earn is truly a wonderful thing. And so we wanted to share that information with you this evening. Also, board, know that the Department of Education is expected to publish the school report cards on September 15th. And then right at about that time of the month, we are also going to be releasing our quality profile. As you know, for many years now, the district has developed and distributed a quality profile which tells the story beyond test scores. And we're excited about all the highlights in this year's quality profile. It's a collaborative effort to put that publication together, and it will be soon in mailboxes throughout our community, in houses as well as in local businesses. So look forward for that coming out before the next board meeting. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our Director of Human Resources, who has been very busy, I'd say the past 4 or 5 months, finding the very best talent through recruitment fairs, through her network. And this evening, it is our pleasure for Belinda to introduce members of our classified staff who are joining us this year. Welcome.
Good evening. Don't judge by the number of staff members that are in attendance, how busy I've been. So I need to clarify that. But what has happened too is we did a lot of moving around with classified people because we had hired some one-year classified folks who we were letting go, but we were able to bring them back in other positions. So that was done. But because they had been here, they're not here tonight. So there has been some of that. Also, I just learned something. When a lot of our classified staff members are community members and people, parents who have kids, and we are into our fall sports and extracurriculars. So I got a lot of phone calls today because when I told them back in July and August, you had to come to this meeting, everybody was okay. Now I'm getting emails today, volleyball game here, extracurricular here, and so forth. But even though they're not in attendance, I would like to recognize some of our new staff members and just tell you a little bit about them. Okay, so I'm going to do it by school. So for Wilcox classified staff, Jacqueline McQuaid is coming back to Wilcox as an instructional assistant. She is coming home to a job that she has found the most rewarding in her career. She loves working with the students and helping them achieve their goals. Jackie's interests include a love of the television show Dateline. So that's what she does when she's not here with her kids. Shayna Movins is joining the team as an instructional assistant. She has a degree in early childhood education from Lake Erie College. She was a preschool teacher for 13 years. She has also been a substitute teacher at Twinsburg. Shayna is an avid reader. She averages about 50 books per year. Good job. And Michael Sheltonic, if you're in attendance, please come up front when I call your name, is coming to us as a new janitor for the building, Wilcox Building. Michael comes from a law enforcement background of over 25 years. He has previously worked as a high school security and has also worked in maintenance in school buildings. Michael is always up for a challenge and likes new things. Vacationing and going to the gym is how he spends his free time when he is not watching his niece play basketball at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Paul Zeller, head custodian at Wilcox.
Come on down.
Come on down. Paul comes to us with 27 years of experience as a custodian, head custodian for the Bedford City Schools. Is working currently at Wilcox as their head custodian, and over the years of his career has made many contributions to Bedford, and we hope that he will replicate those contributions here in our district. And in his spare time, he loves riding his motorcycle. So, and I think he rode it today because I saw it outside. Okay. And so for Wilcox staff, that is the Wilcox classified staff, welcome. Pardon? Oh, he's working? So that's why he's not here. All right, thank you, Paul. Dodge classified staff, Nikki Sablak, has volunteered and been on the PTA boards for both Wilcox and Bissell. She has been a substitute teacher for Twinsburg City Schools. She also worked as a preschool teacher for 3-year-olds for a preschool in Solon. Nikki is looking forward to her new role as media assistant at Dodge. She loves to go camping with her family and 2 dogs. Her favorite trip was a cross-country trip to Utah. And RB Chamberlain classified staff. Susan Bell joins RBC as a cook in our kitchen. Prior to that, she was working in the medical field for university hospitals, but decided that she needed a change and is now joining our cafeteria staff at RB Chamberlain Middle School. Alicia Gowan has always loved to cook. Her grandparents had a bar, restaurant, catering business. She brings much experience as a cook to RBC. Alicia began coaching cheer when no one steps up for the position, and she has learned that she loves being a cheer coach, and that's where she is tonight. For transportation, Michael Surin. Excuse me, nope, wrong, THS. I'm sorry, THS. Marjorie Washington is joining us as a sub-school counselor. And I want Marjorie to come up because she is saving me. As I fill positions for the school district, I have positions that I call my unicorn positions, meaning they're my hard to fill positions. And Marjorie has stepped in to do double duty for me because I needed a long-term guidance counselor, school counselor at the high school for 2 people. So I haven't found 2 sub-counselors, so Marjorie's gonna fill both spots for me. So I do appreciate you. She comes to us from CMSD as a retired school counselor, 35 years of experience with CMSD. She also, after that, did 10 years as a student advisor at Tri-C for a program working with high school students. So she just can't get enough, so she is here to help us, and we definitely appreciate Marjorie, and thank you so much. And that's the high school staff. And last but not least, transportation. Michael Surin. Michael Surin retired from AT&T after 36 years. Michael has enjoyed riding motorcycles for the past 20 years. He has ridden to South Dakota 3 times. He also serves as the treasurer of the Cleveland chapter of HOG, which is Harley Owners Group. Okay. And so welcome, Michael, to the Twinsburg City School District. Thank you. And those are my introductions for tonight. Thank you so much.
So if we can have a photo with our new classified staff members who are here on the board, that would be great.
Marjorie's not really classified, but she's a new staff member. New people, okay. Oh, sure. Look.
Yeah, that's about, that's about like you.
That's a nice group. All right. Tigers.
Tigers.
All right, one more, please.
Tigers.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, they had a,
They found it
they found, yeah.
They did?
You can imagine.
You want to take a recess?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to take a very brief recess. It'll be, let's see, we're going to recess at 7:18. I'll make the motion to recess. Who will second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Rosniak, roll call, please.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Falvor,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, okay, we are in recess. Reconvene at 7:23, and I will turn it over to the, actually, I'm sorry. We'll go to communications for committee reports. Did any committees meet?
I just have a little bit of update from CVCC.
Go for it.
First of all, I spoke with Mrs. Resnaya. They expect notification on the funding that comes from CVCC for each district. With details, I said, please, we have a new treasurer, make sure you send it to right. So that's $30,000. I think you have to detail what you're gonna use it for, spend it, and then request a reimbursement. So expect some notification. If you don't see it, let me know.
It's already here.
You already here? Okay, I wasn't sure if it made it to her office or not, but that was approved at our last meeting. Also, an alumni spotlight, want to give a shout out to someone that you remember quite well, Logan Pawlowski, class of 2016.
Okay.
So there's a really nice alumni profile. He was, again, a 2016 graduate from Twinsburg High School and CVCC's Media Arts program. His resume, even before he graduated, was pretty impressive. But he hooked up with a former colleague from school and got introduced to a position out there. But he had graduated from Full Sail University, got his Bachelor's of Science in film production, and was hired by Simeon LA, out in LA. And he's been there for 3.5 years in post-production. So pretty impressive. He's worked with a lot of folks, Tyler, the creator, Iggy Azalea, Travis Scott, Demi Lovato, and that goes on and on and on, just of all the type of work he's done. So congratulations to Logan. If you're listening on California Time, there's a nice profile. So that's kind of just the short updates from CVCC. Oh, and then, of course, the All Boards Dinner, which I think you were all invited to.
We did.
So
get that invite.
that's nice to see that event return again.
Thank you. Any other committee reports, or did any other committees meet? Okay, now I will move on to the administrative reports, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Strickland or Mrs.
Yes.
Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. As mentioned previously, we do have 2 administrative reports, and Matt has been very busy finalizing projects throughout the summer months. Been here only 3 months, but it feels longer than that for all that has happened. So this evening he wants to share some photos and provide the board with an update on your investment through our PI fund and some of the capital improvements that have happened and things that we have planned for this year. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, members of the board, and I apologize as a rookie administrator here. I did not make copies for you, so please watch the screen, and I'll share this with you later. I want you to, on the title page, keeping our students safe, warm, and dry. That's really a big goal out of the business department. Everything that we do centers around that. So my first slide, before I get into what we spent money on, as a resident, people look at things and they wonder, where's the money come from? A lot of what I do in business is actually out of our permanent improvement fund. We receive right around $2 million annually, and those go toward what's up on the screen: asphalt, concrete, paving, electrical systems, HVAC, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, plumbing, roofing, infrastructure, and then certain capital expenses, some furniture, classroom furniture, technology investments, and then vehicles and equipment. That's a really broad umbrella of things that we spend money on out of the business department, and I always feel like business, our budget most resembles a family. We've got a house or a home to take care of, we've got vehicles to take care of, we've got property to maintain, so a lot going on out of the business budget. But we don't only rely on levies, bonds, permanent improvement funds. We go after grant funding pretty aggressively. I've got good news to report that through the OFCC K-12 School Safety Grant, we are finalizing the process to accept a little over $208,000. That's money and dollars that will be spent this school year that we're in, and that'll be invested in handheld radios, walkie-talkies, and additional security cameras for our building. We've really seen at the startup of our school year, those items are ultra relevant. So that's where those funds will go. And then October is our deadline to apply for another round of school safety funding. that we'll be going after very similar things. The board is aware of things that the community is responding about, and then we're working with our staff and families on other opportunities and investments that they would like to see. Asphalt and paving, sometimes it goes unnoticed until you hit a pothole, but we do try to keep up with the most urgent needs first, and we budget this out pretty strictly because everything that we do in business, we tie that back to the Permanent Improvement Fund. So we try to handle the biggest needs first every summer. I will say that's notable, anything tied to asphalt, concrete, paving, is really directly tied to the price of gas and diesel. So we saw enormous increases this summer compared to year over year. I know that families are feeling that inflation, but just know that if you drive around the properties and you feel like, man, maybe we didn't go as far this summer, there is a reason why. Our dollars did not extend as far this time around, and a lot of that was tied to the cost of fuel. Roofing, we completed a project at RB Chamberlain and Transportation. Everything went well, but what I really want to highlight is we partner with a company called Garland Roofing, and they partner with other roofing contractors. And what's unique about that is we are able to tap into their expertise. And this past summer, Chad and I had orchestrated walking our roofs, and what they do, the word forensic is not in there by mistake. They really analyze our roofs, and they do thermal scans, moisture tests, structural integrity, and they put us on a preventative maintenance schedule. And what that does is it makes it to where we're not just throwing money at a project every summer and saying, oh, well, we think Bissell needs a new section of a roof. We're able to look at data in those thermal scans and see where are our most moist spots of the roof, and then that's what we address summer by summer. Does that make sense? So they're a great partner to have. On the same line, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, we partner with a company called Gardner for energy conservation and efficiency. And that's really along the same vein, is that we're able to take their expertise and their technology, and it gives us data to make better decisions than what we might be able to make on our own. We've been mostly successful with this program in upgrading hardware and software throughout all of our HVAC systems. But to be totally transparent, the only drawback to this has been Dodge. Dodge School we are really struggling with our HVAC system at Dodge. We have run into a situation where I informed Superintendent Powers that Gardner had to reach out to us and say, part of our agreement is to work to draw the most efficiency out of your systems that can be gained. At Dodge right now, that's not the case. We are having to operate nearly that entire system manually. And what that means is we're literally operating it with switches every day just to keep the building as comfortable as possible. That means we can't do any automation. We can't tap into any of our Gardner technology. So really, we're not really realizing a lot of savings, but it's because of the age of the system. And I'll give you another example. Some of the components that we've ran up against, they don't make anymore. So Gardner's kind of looked at us like, well, we'll try to bypass, but you either replace a large portion of the system or we just try to soldier on manually. So just so full transparency, that's where we are with HVAC at Dodge. Not all the news is bad at Dodge. We did do a lot of work at Dodge to create some additional learning spaces. We split the old band space and made 2 large classrooms. We're proud of that progress, and then we are adding some additional storage for the influx in students, and then trying to work with some of our new staff to get them some additional storage as well. Stadium, behind the stadium all the way to the bus garage and maintenance garage area, we were experiencing water drainage to where it was washing away at the base of our bleachers at the backside of the stadium. And from what I understand, that's been going on for a few years now. And we were finally able to work with a contractor to mitigate that. And what you see in the left picture They trenched from behind maintenance all the way up and rerouted a storm drain, as you also see, to mitigate that. It's not a permanent fix, but it certainly will buy us a good chunk of time. It was cost effective. We worked it within the budget, and we're able to successfully do that so we can have a safe stadium. Athletics, so when you walk through a school, in addition to waxing and polishing and resurfacing classrooms and hallways, we did resurface some of our gym floors. Now that's important not just because it's shiny and it'll look great for games, but it's a safety component, and it actually helps us to get the most amount of life out of those wood floors. So we were able to do that. And then on our softball at Hoon Field, we were able to install roofs over the dugouts that had not been there before, just to give them a little bit more of a safe, comfortable environment. And we also tapped into electricity from our stadium, and we're able to run that out there for softball, just for some convenience factors. Technology investments. We all know that we can't leave our students and staff behind when it comes to technology advancements. We did install interactive flat panels, which you've seen primarily at our LGI when we have meetings there. New desktop monitors were part of that cycle. The new USB-C docking stations. If you picture what a lot of this does is it helps our teachers and our instructors be more mobile in the classroom, so they're not stationed at one desk. They're able to get out, interact with the kids, and still instruct from a distance. And then we continued our 4-year cycle of Chromebook and staff computer replacements. And the other thing I want to highlight is that we responsibly recycle old technology. We don't just scrap it out. We don't just dispose of it. We do get money back. We partner with companies that come and they do give us like a core value of technology that's ended its useful life. Wayfinding signage. I thought this was when I was new here a few months ago, I thought this was the coolest idea. Based on feedback from the community and staff, maybe even some of you, people said, hey, we'd like to be able to better navigate district property. So we responded. We partnered with a local vendor, and I just put up some examples, and you're going to start to see these being installed this week. So in the days and weeks ahead, our properties will get a lot easier to navigate. Most of it is in the bright blue theme for ease of visibility. And what I really liked was they paid keen attention to ADA compliance signage. When we think about our visitors or our students or our families that might have any sort of disability, this signage will be more compliant, more visible for all of our Tiger family. And last but certainly not least, safety and security. So a lot of the dollars that we look at when we budget do go into our facilities, and nothing's been more at the forefront than safety and security. I want you all to know, and the community to know, that we are actively engaged in a facilities audit, and that's all of our buildings. And we're testing our doors, testing our locks, testing our security cameras, our radios, our fob access points, and our signage. This is not one slide I'll show you that I'll say, we did this summer. This is an ongoing. Safety doesn't stop. This is day-to-day, week-to-week auditing of our facilities. And if we see it and it's either defective or safety prohibitive, we will address it. What I mean by safety prohibitive is a door may lock, as we've learned at this quick start to the year. A lock may function the way it's designed to, but it may be positioned in a way that doesn't necessarily set our staff or students up for a safe environment. So we're addressing all of that, and that is ongoing. And lastly, our board graciously approved earlier this summer 5 security liaison positions. We have recruited a highly qualified team, and their training is underway. And over the next several events in the upcoming weeks, you'll start to see those new staff members keeping our communities and our kids safe. Does anyone have any questions?
Not at this time. A lot of work into that.
A lot of behind the scenes stuff. Some stuff you see, some stuff you don't. But
I know a lot of the roofing is tied to warranties and agreements that we have as well.
absolutely.
You know, number of scans and such, and I know we keep renegotiating, you know, those extensions, but
Yep.
Roofs shouldn't last 25 years, and we're pushing it on a lot of them. So
Right.
I know the scans and the data are very helpful.
And that's a huge benefit to our partnership with Garland, is that when they walk that and they analyze the roof, they'll go to our areas first that are almost out of warranty to try to get us some benefit there. So it's a great partnership.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next up is our Director of Curriculum, Jennifer Farthing, who would like to present the preliminary local report card data to the board this evening. And we're pretty excited about the success of our students. So welcome, Jen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Board of Education, audience guests, and those live stream viewers. We would like to start this evening, before I start on the local report cards, by letting you know that at the September 28th Board of Education meeting, we will be having a public hearing on our federal funds. This will be a new yearly practice that occurs in the fall, and at that time we will also provide an update on ESSER funding. That used to be something that we did at the Curriculum and Technology Committee, and then would report out on it, but now we're going to do it officially here at this meeting on the 28th. Okay. All right. And now I would like to begin the presentation. A few things before we begin. Value Added, also known as Progress, was released last night. So this is hot off the presses, and we haven't had a huge amount of time to get into the nitty-gritty yet, but the data is here for you. The entire format of the local report card has changed, as well as all of the specific calculations. The ratings are now based on a star system. The individual targets have been changed and recalibrated. Ohio districts have the ability to file appeals, and some percentages may fluctuate as the ODE works through those appeals. And that is specifically with the performance index, and I will show you that when we get to that slide. As Mrs. Powers stated, the local report card is slated to be released next Thursday morning, and this data is as good as it is right this minute. So it may not be exactly what we see next Thursday morning, but we're thinking it should be really close. This is the district component overview, and I'm super excited by those 4s and 5s up there. And now we'll go into each of the components individually. The district achievement rating is based on the performance index of all Ohio districts. And this 4-star rating that we earned was comprised of this screen right here. So as a reminder, the performance index is the weighted average of the student performance on Ohio's state tests. Points are calculated by the following weights. Untested gets a 0, limited is 0.3. When the students earn basic, that's worth 0.6. Proficient is a 1. Accelerated is 1.1. Advanced is 1.2, and Advanced Plus is a 1.3. So that is how this number is made up. And you may recall that in the past, the highest performance index was 120, which was met by basically no one. And there would be some very high-performing school districts that would get, 108, 109, 110, up through about 112. So now you'll see here that the maximum performance index was 107.254, and the little information button by that says the max performance index is based on the average of the highest top 2% of district performance index scores in the state. So that is the calculation that is subject to change if districts file an appeal. So that number can fluctuate, and it has fluctuated throughout the process of the local report card being released. Sorry. The next area to discuss is the progress component. Progress is also known as value added, and it is now called the gap closing report. Gap closing, so, I've been doing this a while with you. So gap closing was originally called AYP, which was annual yearly progress. And then it turned to AMO, which was annual measurable objectives. And then this is what we're looking at now. So in gap closing, we are provided targets to close the gaps in subgroups. So you'll see this looks very different. And each of the yellow boxes are the scores we earned. And then beside it is the possible scores. So some of this looks familiar, but some of it is different. So this is where the gifted used to live by itself on the report card, and now gifted lives within the gap closing measure. So you'll see that there's the gifted performance index, gifted progress, gifted identification, graduation points. Chronic absenteeism is sitting here, but it is not rated. It is just here for report only right now. English learner progress, and then we have math and ELA, both achievement points and progress points. So all of that lives in this kind of very busy screen, but and these are the targets that were adjusted with the pandemic and with the year of no testing. So this had a little bit of updating, but we are so super excited by 5 stars up there. I mean, the day this came out, we were so excited. And that sign changing is very unnerving, because I always feel like there's something else going on, and it's the sign, and this is our first time here since the sign's been on. Sorry. Sorry, I digress. Another thing that we are so excited about and very proud of was our performance of our gifted students. So this, as I said, the gifted measure changed, and within gap closing, we are now evaluated on the gifted performance. And I have to give a shout out to our students and our staff and our families. Look at these scores. So the maximum was in the 121 range, but look at our scores: 118.9, 119.3, 120.3, and 115.6. And then if you look at our performance index percentage, that just is fantastic. So like I would send Mrs. Powers texts and show her pictures like as I was going through these results. Just so exciting. It's the good stuff that we have to be really proud of. So want to share that with you. And then this is what the district gifted screen looks like in general. So this is the gap closing district performance, and you'll see where we are overall in the district, and then where we rank within the state. So, and I told you before that this report card, you need a few college degrees, I think, to be able to explain it. And I've been on, I know Mrs. Travis has too, lots of webinars to try to learn about this, because there's been a lot of changes with it, but we're happy with our results. The district early learning results, we earned 3 stars here. This is a new way to report the early literacy component. There are now 3 parts that make up the overall grade, and the 3 parts are the ELA percentage points, and then we have our improvement in the literacy, which is from RIMS from year to year, which we were used to, and then we have our promotion to 4th grade, and that was all students were promoted to 4th grade this year. But you'll see that there are different weights within each category there. So district-wide, we earned 3 stars there.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Well, if you go back to the one where it shows like the different schools they met and not met, like I see like for the high school we didn't meet, and I see like the maximum performance gifted index score, but like, you know, it was at 121, we were at 115. Like, does it show like what that range would have needed to be at for us to meet?
It does. I did not put that in this screen here, but yes, I could definitely provide that for you, Mrs. Crawford. So, and if you look at the other numbers, they're in the 99, 97, 98. So I'm sure we were probably pretty close, but I'll provide that to Mrs. Powers to provide to you. Thank you for your question. Graduation rate was 5 stars, and we would like to kudos to everyone to help make this happen. And this does start with our Tiger Cubs at Wilcox, all the way through the journey to Twinsburg High School and across the stage at E.J. Thomas Hall. But look at that, 98.8, 99.1, and 98.9. And that is a team effort. I know that this is predominantly Twinsburg High School, but it's everything that happens in the grades before that to help make this happen. And anytime we talk about graduates, we always want to make sure we're focused on our portrait of a graduate, and we are always thinking about enrolled, enlisted, employed, and making sure our graduates leave us ready to pursue whatever their future may be. And I bring that up because there is going to be a new measure on the report card. It's college, career, workforce, and military readiness. This is in a non-report state right now. It's just informational only. It will be worked on for the 2025 report card, and there has to be a joint committee on agency review to go ahead and get this set up. But items that we will be looking for are college and career and workforce and military readiness. So what we have been used to having in this measure would be ACT and SAT remediation free, honors diplomas, our AP scores, industry credentials, and now we're adding the students of CCP credits, students who have apprenticeships, Ohio means jobs readiness seal being earned, 2- and 4-year college enrollment, Ohio Tech School enrollment, other college enrollment, gainful employment, and military enlistment. So as you notice, that is going to require a lot of communications with our graduates and alumni. So it measures enrolled, enlisted, and employed like we talk about with our portrait of a graduate, but they have a little bit of work to do on this, and then we are going to have a little bit of work to do on this to make sure we're getting the accurate reporting from our graduates.
Is there going to be like a window? Because it's not like the day of graduation. Is it
No,
like
it's
6
going,
months or?
yeah, it's going to be a
Yeah.
while after, and that
So
information
that's
isn't
why it's
out.
not, so they're going to be, in 2025, be using like 23 and 24 data?
Most likely,
Okay.
yes. Yep. Yes. And then for the future, so as a reminder, this report card does not have an overall rating. Each component has a measure. But in the future, achievement and progress must be weighted equally. Graduation, early literacy, and gap closing will be weighted equally. And then graduation, early literacy, and gap closing must be half of the weight given to achievement. So that is clear as mud, but I mean, I know it makes sense, but it does need to, like, you can't just explain that once and get it. You'll have to look into that again. We do not have time to go into a deep dive into each of our schools, but I would like to just share the overall screen for our local report cards for each building. So this is the high school, earning 4s and 5s, and you know that the high school is non-report for early literacy because they are not impacted there, and that the college and career and workforce component is not rated or ready yet. So very pleased and proud of our work here. RBC, same, 4s and 5s. Dodge, 4s and 5s. And then this was last night's happy news, so I'm gonna go to this screen. And this is a picture of value added or progress. And if you look here this is Dodge, and this is overall in their building for students with disabilities. All of those areas are 5 stars. And
That's a
that
big
is
jump.
just,
That's
That's
huge.
awesome.
that's huge. That is a lot of work that made that happen after the pandemic, and that means that they made over a year's worth of growth, way over. So just like, I just have to give a big shout out to the staff at Dodge. It was late last night, but I knew Mrs. Powers and Mr. Holland would want to know that. And
And we're probably up.
they were up. Yes, they were both up. But just super exciting, 5 stars. And I'm not touting them above another building, but I feel that deserves a shout out, like 5 stars in students with disabilities all the way in every category just is fantastic.
It's a huge accomplishment.
It is a huge
And, you know, Board,
accomplishment.
we've been talking about that as part of the strategic plan now. This is year 3 as focus. This shows that when you target something, you pay attention, growth happens. And so that's what's going on here. We're just really delighted with this and proud of the students, number one, thankful to the families for being on the journey with us, but really indebted to the staff here that make it happen every day.
And then the prior data you received shifted this to make things happen.
And and last year they were in 2 separate buildings and they still got it done. So I just had to give that shout out. Samuel Bissell Elementary School earned 5s and 4s in theirs. When we looked at the district, our early literacy was 3 stars, but Bissell earned 4 stars. And then Wilcox Primary, Wilcox, as you know, they are not a tested area, so their gap closing is focused on, yep, come on, Jennifer. Their gap closing is focused on chronic absenteeism, and then their early literacy, because they do not offer the 3rd grade ELA test, their early literacy is focused only on K-1 RIMP improvement. So, and I have told Mrs. Powers, and I've told Mrs. Villa, we have students who are on RIMPs. We're always going to have students that are on RIMPs. We are going to always have students that are going to struggle.
That's what
And that's what
RIP
it's
is
there for,
Yes.
exactly. So I'm not going to apologize for that. I mean, it is what it is, and we are going to do the best we can for our students, so.
And it's too early to look at preschool as it, how it might affect leading into,
Yes,
kindergarten.
at this time preschool is not a part of that.
Right.
And then we have to remember that those students that were with us last year, most of them didn't have preschool, or we had, we're looking at our 2nd and 3rd graders this year that this might be their first as close to normal possible school year that they've had in a while, so. Right. Does anyone
I
have any?
appreciate all that hard work. I mean, composing this report as well, but just, of course, the teachers and the staff,
Right.
and just over the past couple of years, what everybody's burning themselves to the ground at times, but it's really, it shows, and it's made a difference, and appreciate all that hard work.
Yeah, I just have to give such a big shout out to our teachers and our administrators and our community and our students, because I'm just reporting the data, but I mean, they made it all happen, so.
Well, let me just add, you're not just
Well,
reporting the data,
but-
because we have been through board. I cannot tell you how many report card trainings over the past 6 months on this is a change, then that's not a change, and then this was going to be this way, then it's not going to be that way, and this is going to count here, this star is going to mean that. Mrs. Farthing, you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Based on what I can do here, you've done an excellent job of presenting this to us in a way that we can understand it, and that's just not easy, folks. It's
We've
just,
been through
this
how
is one of the
many-
most difficult
How many
years.
report cards, at least in Tina and,
Yeah, this will be
in 9 years, we've had, 4 different versions?
Almost
Right.
every
Letter
day.
grades,
Every
number
time,
present,
pretty
yeah.
much every time, they
Yes.
looked a little
Yeah.
different, so.
Yes, so this is just not an easy compilation of data, and to present it in a manner to the public that makes sense is very good.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for your support, Board of
Pretty
Education.
remarkable. So I just want to make a couple of observations, and to your point, when talking about our graduation rate, that's really what it's all about, is kids matriculate, from building to building, from grade to grade. At the end of the day, the golden carrot is to graduate, right? And the extent to which they are able to do that lets us know that they're really prepared to go on into the world. So 99%, I'm going to call it 99%, 98.8 is 99, just round up 99%, is just amazing and phenomenal. The other piece, when you're talking about the college career and workforce and military readiness piece, I just wanted to point out that the ACT and SAT remediation-free piece, there was information out there that led you to believe, that, just based on the number of kids who have a remediation-free score, there was just an assumption. People can draw a conclusion that all these kids are going to college, and they're not. The reality is that every kid that graduates is not going to college, and so when they take these tests, they take them because they have to take them, but that's not a reflection on their ability to graduate or succeed. So I just wanted to publicly say that, because people take this information and they run with it and they make assumptions that, all these kids are not going to college. Yeah, they're not. All the kids are not going to college. Right. The only other observation that I'll make is that this is over the last couple of years of what the district has been through, you know, our teachers and all of our district staff. And so looking back, the decisions that we made as a board and as an administration, conscious effort to keep our kids in the buildings as much as possible, when we know that there are districts all around the state of Ohio that were 100% remote. They didn't have the benefit of live instruction. So the extent to which we could, we did that. We also offered a hybrid, you know, model as well. But the bottom line is, I think the lengths to which we went to make sure that our buildings were conducive and prepared for kids to come into the building and receive instruction, because we know at the end of the day that is the most effective means of delivering instruction, is in person. I think that has a lot to do with, you know, with what we're seeing here, because not every district was able to do it. I mean, we jumped through hoops and moved heaven and earth to get it done, but the bottom line is, I think that this now tells us that the effort was well worth doing, because our students, at the end of the day, they benefited.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Is that it, Mrs. Powers?
That concludes our administrative reports for tonight.
Good
You
stuff.
can't follow that.
I cannot, cannot.
I think at least in my time here, that report card makes me the most proud because of what you just said. What we have been through as a community, as a school family over the last 2 years, and for yet and still the kids to perform so well. And I know it's just not about a test score, and there's a lot of other things that we take care of, but to receive that news this week was just wonderful, and I am so proud of all of the staff and all of the kids and their families, because without everybody pushing together, we were very proud of what happened during our pandemic experience, because we did it together as a community, and this is just one of the results of that effort, coming together, being collaborative, and doing it as one family. Just so proud. So
Absolutely.
thank you for your kind words tonight. And Mrs. Farthing is very, very much wants to not get the kudos, but that's who should get the kudos, because she works so diligently with everybody and listens and learns and moves the place forward. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Just really delighted.
Absolutely. Mrs. Rosnai, I don't believe we have any cards for remonstrance. At least I don't have any. So that being said, we'll move on to the treasurer's report, item K, treasurer's report and recommendations. Without objection from my colleagues, I'll read K1 through 4 together. K1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following meeting minutes: regular meetings of August 3rd, 2022 and August 17th, 2022, and special meetings August 24th, 2022 and August 29th, 2022, is sent to the board under separate cover. 2, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the following financial reports for the month of July 2022: bank reconciliation, cash summary report by fund, cash summary report by fund, and special cost center disbursement summary report and investments portfolio review, as sent to the board under separate cover. 3, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves all expenditures for the month of July 2022 based on the disbursement summary report for a total of $4,855,043.17. And 4, that the Twinsburg Board of Education enter into an agreement with K-12 Business Consulting Incorporated, P.O. Box 476, New Albany, Ohio 43054, for the 5-year forecast during fiscal year #23 at $6,500. This is a general fund expenditure. Do I have a motion for K1 through 4?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Travis. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, and that motion carries 5-0. Next is L, action items, personnel. Without objection, I'll read them together. L1, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. 2, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And 3, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Do I have a motion for L 1 through 3?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Travis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Any discussion?
And can you refer number 3?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Um,
For supplemental.
actually, we need to go back then. Mrs. Davis wants me to separate out 3. So I will allow that. So we will, I'm sorry, I'm gonna amend this. We're gonna be doing action items 1 and 2 right now. I will go with Mrs. Travis as a first and Mr. Felber as a second. Any discussion? Okay, Mrs. Rosnaya, roll call, please.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, and that motion carries 5-0. Now, L3, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Do I have a motion for L3?
So moved.
All right, so moved by Mrs. Travis. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Crawford. Discussion.
Yes, nothing too exciting, but my husband's name is on the supplemental contracts for one of the teachers who will be chaperoning for DC, so I will not be voting on this. I'll be abstaining on item number 3.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? I'm hearing none. Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes. And Mrs. Davis will be abstaining.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is 4 and 1 abstention. Okay, next is M1. Hold on for a second. All right, we're separating out M12 and 13.
It's 1 to 10 first.
Oh, yes, 1 through
Yeah.
10, then
Yeah,
11.
1 through 10.
Then 11.
Then there's 11, then.
Okay, all right, so, items, see, M, action items, new business, 1 through 10. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, without objection, I will read them, and then I will get a motion. A little ahead of myself, apologize for that. M1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education continues Board of Education Policy 5113, inter-district open enrollment without revision for the 22-23 school year. 2, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the second reading of revised Board of Education policies, and they were listed within. 3, that the Board of Education approves the service agreement with the Education Alternatives, 5445 Smith Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44142, for 6 students to attend the day treatment program for the 22-23 school year, as sent to the board under separate cover. Prepaid tuition cost is $172,856. This is a general fund expenditure. 4, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the contract for professional services with Steps Education Group, 4040 Tamarack Drive, Parma, Ohio, 44134. For 1 student to attend Steps Academy Insightful Minds for the 22-23 school year in accordance with the student's IEP, as sent to the board under separate cover. Tuition cost is not to exceed $79,000, and this is a general fund expenditure. 5, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the agreement with 2 Cafe and Bouquet, 8578 East Washington Street, Chagrin Falls, Ohio, 44023, to provide work-based on-site job training for select students from Twinsburg High School during the 22-23 school year for an amount not to exceed $19,850. This is an expenditure to be funded through the ARP IDEA ESSER funds. 6, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the settlement agreement, release, and waiver for educational expenses for one student receiving special education services at Lawrence School, 1551 East Wallings Road, Broadview Heights, Ohio, 44147, for the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. Tuition cost for the district is not to exceed $62,698. Per the conditions outlined in the agreement as sent to the board under separate cover. This is a general fund expenditure. 7, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the cooperative agreement between the Twinsburg City School District Board of Education and the Twinsburg Public Library Board of Trustees, providing that the Twinsburg City School District will provide the Twinsburg Public Library with fuel at its cost exclusively for the use of its bookmobile, and will invoice the Twinsburg Public Library on a quarterly basis for the fuel as sent to the board under separate cover. 8, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the memorandum of understanding with the Twinsburg Education Association regarding Article 13, compensation, G, supplemental positions and salary stipends of the master agreement, and allowing for additional supplemental contracts to support student activities for the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. And 9, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the removal of the following inventory at Samuel Bissell Elementary School that has been determined to be no longer needed for school purposes and or beyond the useful life. The items do not have asset tags. Student desks, large classroom chairs, black plastic chairs, and small orange chairs. And 10, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the Twinsburg High School senior Aiden Page to exercise Board of Education Policy 5111, optional tuition-free education, and remain at Twinsburg High School student through the end of the 22-23 school year. Do I have a motion for items M1 through 10?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Travis. Any discussion?
Board, if I can just mention what number 5 is about.
Yes.
And so, as you know, this year is the beginning of our Connections class at Twinsburg High School. It's the class that will connect students at the high school level to career options and internships. And one of the things that we've desired when we had the Academy at Twinsburg High School, which was the precursor to the Connections course, was opportunities for students with disabilities so that they would have transition into the world of work. And so fortunately, there's an organization in Chagrin Falls called the 2 Cafe, and their little restaurant and boutique is called the 2 Cafe and Boutique. And some of our students from Twinsburg High School will be enrolled in the program to help them learn some retail skills, to help them learn to maybe work in a restaurant. And it's just a really nice new opportunity for students at the high school. And we're excited that we're able to use some of our ESSER funds to support their enrollment, registration, and participation in the 2 Foundations option for some of our students. So pretty excited about that. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Strickland to explain the cooperative agreement with the Twinsburg Public Library. We're delighted to do this for Ms. Leonard and the crew over there.
Yeah, so the bookmobile primarily serves our students and helps out with a ton of different things for our schools. So we had vetted this just to make sure that we were in bounds with doing this with them. So what this is, this enables them to purchase fuel from us at the cost that we get it. So we still are using our tank. It's under our supervision. They will check in with our transportation department and we will log it, and then we will bill them accordingly. But it saves them a good amount of money and really helps continue to foster that partnership with them.
Thank you for that explanation, and Mrs. Powers, appreciate you explaining that, because I completely butchered that.
What's that word?
Your brain
That
just
array.
kept wanting to tell you something.
I'm not going to repeat it.
I was gonna
I'll
ask you to read
set
number
myself
5.
up again.
You read number 5 again?
I will not. Don't need clarification, Mr. Felber.
It's a nice boutique from what I
Yes,
heard.
boutique. But also for the policy piece, just like to remind the community that any policies that we approve are required 2 readings. So this is the second reading, and then we will formally adopt the policies. So any other discussion or comments? Okay, Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford. Mr. Falber.
Yes.
Mrs. Travis.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes. And the motion carries 5-0. Next is M11. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the second reading of the revised Board of Education bylaws as noted below. Do I have a motion for M11?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Travis. Discussion. Hearing none, Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Falber.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Travis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, and that motion carries 5-0. I don't want to trip myself up again. Okay, did you want me to?
I'm 12,
Okay, so we're doing 12 separately?
please.
Okay. All right, we're going to do 12 separately. M12, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the inter-district service agreement with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio, 6392 Oak Tree Boulevard, Independence, Ohio, 44131 for the 22-23 school year for the following positions: gifted consultant, network manager, tech support specialist, tech resource assistant, and security liaison, per the terms detailed and on the agreement as sent to the board under separate cover. Do I have a motion for M12?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Davis. Discussion.
Yes, I'd like to make a couple comments here, please. Whenever the Northeast Ohio Educational Service Center comes up, I have my little line of speech here that I give each time. I am going to add, in relationship to what I'm doing tonight, a couple more comments here really briefly. I do work at the ESC of Northeast Ohio. I am under a contract there for X number of days. For those days, I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I want to make sure that we're very transparent here tonight. That paycheck is exactly the same dollar amount every 2 weeks for 12 months for those days worked. Anything that goes on the board here for a vote or of approval has nothing to do with me financially. I'm saying that because I am making a little bit of a change here when we get to M13. I want to be very transparent to the community that that is how it is. Whether I work in one district or 100 districts, my paycheck remains the same for 12 months every 2 weeks. Whether this district or 100 other districts sign on with the ESC makes no difference in my paycheck. So to read my normal thing, to be transparent, I work with the ESC, however, I'm not involved in any of these departments. I make no benefit financially or otherwise for this work, but again, to avoid any appearance of impropriety, I will abstain from voting on M12.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Travis. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford. Mr. Falber.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, that motion carries 4 with 1 abstention. 13, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the employment of 4 security liaisons through the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. Effective date is September 9th. Hourly rate will be $19 an hour, 7.25 hours per day, 193 days prorated for the 22-23 school year. Kevin Schmoll, Shondell Buttram, Ashley Keenan, and Zachary Kennedy. Do I have a motion for M13? So moved by Mrs. Crawford. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Davis. Discussion.
Okay, yes, so I want to come back in on this particular point on our agenda. When I campaigned for this position, I remained completely loyal to the fact that the reason I was running for the Board of Education was to make every decision in the best interest of the children, the staff, and this community. Even though this says Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio, I'm interpreting this as this is about safety and security and an improvement or an increase in someone providing that for our students, our staff, and our community. So I am making a decision tonight to vote on this particular measure because I believe it is extremely important to carry through the promise that I made to this community that I would do whatever I needed to do for safety, security, the well-being, the best interest of this entire community, which is our students and our staff and all of us. So I will be voting tonight on this measure.
Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Travis. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mrs. Raznaya, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Next is M14, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the revised Board of Education policies as noted in J2. Do I have a motion for M14?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Travis. Any discussion?
Mr. Curtis, just an error. It should be M2, not J2. There's a typo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should be M2.
Correct.
So let the record reflect that the policy as noted in M2, not J2.
And then similarly, in the next
15.
resolution, it should be M11, not
Okay,
J11.
and, okay, well, when I get to that, okay. Appreciate that clarification, Mrs. Powers. Any other discussion? Mrs. Raznaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. And M15, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the revised Board of Education bylaw as noted. And I'm going to let the record reflect that it should be M11 instead of J11 above. Do I have a motion for M15?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Davis. I'll make a second for Mrs. Crawford. Any discussion? Did you?
That was me, but
Oh, I'm
close
sorry.
enough.
I'm sorry. No.
I'm
Try
throwing
this again.
Mrs.
Throwing
Davis
her
Sorry.
voice.
and Mr. Felber be the second. Mrs. Raznaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, that motion carries 5-0. Okay, M16, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the 22-23 strategic action plan steps as per the attached exhibit. Do I have a motion for M16?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Travis. Discussion.
Mr. Curtis, this evening, I wanted to display the infographic. Every year, we actually have this infographic published once the board authorizes the steps that we'll be taking this year in support of our strategic plan. It's hard to read, so I will just read what the content is so that the community knows what the wording is. So with regard to 21st century teaching and learning, it states during the 22-23 school year, the Twinsburg City School District will ensure educational equity and excellence for each and every student by providing staff members with access to support tools and systems to improve student achievement. Continue to ensure educational equity and excellence for each and every student by providing curriculum and programming aligned with preparing students to be enrolled, enlisted, and employed.
Highly effective professional learning communities will be reutilized as a vehicle for examining school classroom and individual progress. And lastly, under this particular area, introduce students in pre-K through 12 to a variety of careers through intentional, developmentally appropriate efforts such as project-based learning and other extended learning opportunities. With regard to communications during the upcoming, this current school year, to communicate to the greater school community, including parents of graduates and alumni, and collaborate to determine ways they can positively impact our current students. To continue community engagement as it pertains to the Tiger Legacy Project, to inform decisions regarding a possible bond issue, to engage in a full-scale crisis drill with community partners, and then revise the district's crisis communications plan following an evaluation of the drill and the district's response to it, and establish an equity steering committee and develop the committee's structure and processes by which recommendations will be made regarding educational equity in the Twinsburg City School District. With regard to culture and climate, the district will increase mental health awareness through the successful implementation of our new social emotional learning curriculum in grades pre-K through 12. Will support a culture of equity where all students and staff are represented and respected through holistic and creative approaches that address substance prevention and intervention, that refine and realign multi-tiered systems of support, also known as MTSS, and which increase student participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. With regard to facilities, in this year we are going to update the facilities master plan to ensure proper and strategic annual expenditures so that all projects align with the plan and that expenses can be supported through the Permanent Improvement Fund. We're going to update the facilities master plan to include options for the Tiger Legacy Project, which are recommended through ongoing community engagement. And finally, under this area, develop projection models to determine how the economy may impact the Tiger Legacy Project. With regard to finance, we're going to develop a financial plan to maintain fiscal stability through fiscal year 23, which shall include strategies for passing the 6.9 mil renewal levy in November of 2022. We'll continue to operate in a fiscally responsible manner by utilizing the benchmarks identified in the financial strategic planning flowchart to support educational opportunities. Included in this effort will be continued planning for the Tiger Legacy Project, which includes funding options along with planning for a possible new money issue. And we're going to enhance financial communications to all stakeholders by updating the Treasurer's webpage, by introducing new reports to the board and the community that communicate relevant and timely financial information to assist in understanding various aspects of financial stability, and introduce updated procedures in the Treasurer's office which impact district employees and improve efficiencies. And then rounding it out under safety, the district will facilitate student-oriented groups at each school which embrace student voice and choice in discussions which lead to the creation of a safer school climate and which address concerns through the reestablishment of our principal advisory councils. We're going to collaborate with the community law enforcement and safety partners to conduct that full-scale drill in October of 2022. And then following the drill, we will evaluate our emergency management plans and make revisions accordingly. And then finally, we're going to develop and train our threat assessment teams to identify, evaluate, and address threats or potential threats to school security. So we have a lot of work ahead of us this year. This is very important work, as we mentioned under the report card presentation this evening. When we talk about it, when we target it, it happens. And so we appreciate the board's direction. Thank you for spending a work session with us to further define the work for the year. Once the board authorizes the work tonight, our staff members, particularly our principals and our educators, will build professional growth plans around what the district work is. So what happens in the classrooms will be aligned with the plan here that the board would authorize this evening. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, but just a very, very brief comment. Although this looks visually simplistic and easy to read, outside of the work session, this involved hours and hours and hours of work by the administration and to come up with these things, and probably lots of time away from family. And I just want to let you know how much I, and I'm sure the rest of us, do appreciate all that work for that. So that's basically my very simple 2 cents on that.
Thank you.
And we'll
Mrs.
see
Davis. That's
as we
very kind.
revisit this through the year, through the continuous improvement and the quarterly reports, this framework is repeated. You'll see report after report after report from various administrators and departments following, these good guidelines.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Powers. Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Farber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes,
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, and that motion carries 5-0. Next is M17. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following definition for educational equity. The Twinsburg City School District will empower all staff and students to experience teaching and learning opportunities that honor the diversity excuse me, of our school community. On educational equity, on our educational equity journey, through district-wide practices, the Twinsburg City School District will intentionally allocate resources and provide opportunities for all students. And an asterisk, every student has access to the resources and supports they need at the time they are needed in their education pathway, despite race, gender, ethnicity, language, sexual orientation, ability, family background, or family income. Do I have a motion for M17? So moved by Mrs. Crawford. Do I have a second?
second.
Second by Mrs. Davis. Discussion. So this is what I referenced in my president's report, and I'm actually glad that the verbiage is here to be read because it's really important. We've spent a lot of time on this to kind of develop what this means for Twinsburg City Schools. And then most recently, we, again, met with the National School Boards Association and kind of had our own discussion as a board to understand more deeply how they arrived at this point. The board, my colleagues deliberated and asked questions and provided more feedback to come to where we are today. So I think this is a pretty significant milestone for this district. And remembering how it all started, I'm very proud that we're here voting on this and really making a commitment to be this, that this will embody. If you work in Twinsburg City Schools, this is what we're about. So appreciate the work of my colleagues, and more importantly the work of the administration and everyone in the district that's been involved in this process. It's going to be ongoing, and just as we talked about the strategic plan, this is aligned to the strategic plan, and it is fluid, so it will change as need be. But again, very significant step in this process, and I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this.
And I would say, I mimic what he says, but also, there was a lot of work that went into this, and I'm excited to start this path. And I was excited yesterday to see Ms. Villa send out information for folks at the school who are interested in being a part of the committee. And today she let Wilcox know that she's already gotten a lot of response already for that. So that's exciting. So I encourage anyone at other schools, if you're interested, if this is a passion that you have, to please get involved, because we would love to have your input and to start making some changes and doing some great work.
Thank you, Mrs. Crawford. Any other comments?
Mr. Curtis, just to mention, remember the board had a draft definition in the spring, and the community came forward through our survey and really helped to revise this based on their feedback. So you listened to what the residents, our family members
Yes.
said, and ultimately we are proud to present this tonight for your vote. But it has been quite a journey, and we appreciate anybody who provided feedback in the survey because all that was considered as we ultimately landed here.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Powers. Okay, Mrs. Rosnaya, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. On to miscellaneous. Item N, do we have anything for miscellaneous? I was at that game last Friday. Awesome. And although we did not win, I did read that that was the first time we scored in 3 years? 4 years. So things are moving in the right direction. And the guys never quit fighting. They kept playing all the way until the end. It's a fun time. So if you have not been to a Twinsburg Tiger football game, you are missing out. You need to go. Very exciting, good football, and like I said, good things ahead for our football team. Yes, first time. No. I have to clarify that. Against Aurora, we have scored. We've scored plenty against Aurora, but you know, great team. Aurora's a great team. So the fact that we were able to make a dent is huge. So I appreciate that. If there are no other comments, we do have a need for executive session. So the Board of Education will enter into executive session at 8:34 to discuss employment, discipline, and compensation of public employees as per Board of Education Policy 0166A. Review negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of employment as per Board of Education Policy 0166E, and to discuss matters required to be confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes as per Board of Education Policy 0166F. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Crawford, second by Mrs. Travis. Mrs. Rosnaya, roll call, please.
Mrs. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Falber,
Yes.
Mrs. Travis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes, well, we are now in executive session. I do not anticipate that we will conduct further business once we reconvene. Good night.